We're going to have Cyril, Vikram, and Ritesh present today. But first, let's just kick it off by giving them a big round of applause, and we'll get started. So thank you.
Good morning.
Watch me.
Just watch me now. Just watch me now. I got something for you, a little more for you. You won't believe your eyes. Just watch me now. I got something for you, a little more for you. You won't believe your eyes. Just watch me now. Just watch me now.
Hello everybody. How you doing? Thanks for joining our breakout session, joining Vikram and Ritesh and myself, just to go through a little bit of a deep dive, what you saw earlier today from Jimin, to give you a little bit more meat on the bone. As practitioners, you really like to get that meat on the bone. We'll take you through a little bit of where we are on AI, and I know that video will make sense in a second. Even though we're at a FinOps conference, AI is still relevant in everything we do in our personal lives and our work lives. I want to just, before I kick off, just apologize for a mistake I made. I've been told that my best color on stage is maroon or purple, and I made a huge mistake yesterday, and I wore my purple top. And so now I have to stand on stage all dressed in blue, so hopefully that's okay for all of you. Put up with it. If you have feedback for me, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'll gladly take your feedback. Thank you. So to dive right in, here's where we're at and sort of what we'll cover in this breakout session today. Really, we centered our approach in 3 areas. And Jimin covered a little bit of it, and we'll just dive deeper into it. First of all is FinOps for AI, and I'll kick things off covering that topic, and that's really how do we bring the great FinOps practice to the unbelievable opportunity that our businesses see in AI. Not only Microsoft and what we are embedding, but of course all of your businesses, all of your business decision makers are making decisions today on how to improve their business, be more innovative with AI. And so how do we take FinOps and apply it to that? And I'll cover that. We'll cover a little bit about Copilot on FinOps. And so you saw a video there about Copilot, more on sort of the end user side, but really can get in more detail about how you as practitioners can use Copilot in your daily lives. And then finally, not to be forgotten, how FinOps and sustainability sort of intersect. And again, getting to some product details, you'll get a sense on both of those. So with that, let's jump in and take a look at FinOps on AI. And so I'm not going to belabor this point, but I think you all know artificial intelligence didn't arrive 18 months ago or 2 years ago. It's been around a while already, and in many different forms. The difference is that with generative AI, things have taken a new level of interest. And why is that important? It's important because up until that point, AI was being executed really by technologists. And in some cases, the business was being interested. And we have good examples at Microsoft where we use things like machine learning before generative AI for our marketing model. So we could see every time someone engaged with us, we use machine learning. At some point, after 8, 10, 12 hits, we know that person is highly engaged and ready for a conversation for a salesperson. Not a lead, not a hardcore lead, but certainly they've downloaded an ebook, they've come to an event, they've watched a webcast, 10 or 12 engagement, and machine learning told us, hey, Cyril is ready for a conversation about FinOps. We use it in our financial business just to give forecasting and analysis, and machine learning is very good at telling us how to forecast our business. So machine learning has been around a while. Generative AI, what it did is it injected energy into the minds of our business leaders to understand the art of the possible. That's very different from something that's driven by technologists. The business is now demanding, hey, how can we use AI? And this is an opportunity for all of us. And so AI is shifting from across the entire industry. Individuals, teams, and organizations are adopting at quick velocity and scale artificial intelligence. Not only generative AI, which is very popular right now, but also back into machine learning, vector search AI, etc. And what we're seeing when you take a look at all of the customers that are adopting AI, they fall into these 4 categories. Now, if I had to send you a link to the website, which I can, you will see scroll after scroll after scroll of examples. I put 4 up on the screen, but they really fall into these 4 categories. Enriching employee experience, reinventing customer engagement, reshaping business, and bending the innovation curve. I've given 4 examples here. There are hundreds and hundreds of examples just in the last 18 months of fresh artificial intelligence business cases that have been implemented. In addition to that, what we're seeing through research is that the return of this investment is happening in light speed. Traditionally, a return on investment, a financial business case, would be a 3 to 5 year business case. We are seeing through AI implementation, within a 14-month window, a 3x ROI. That's very different from anything else in the technology industry. So we have this amazing intersection of business leaders interested in a technology that can reshape their business and return being seen quite quickly. That's all great, but why do we care? Because we're the FinOps people. Why do we care about what's happening? Well, we need to care because cast your mind back 7, 8, maybe 10 years ago when cloud was being adopted, and that was a runaway train. What are we doing now? Well, FinOps is trying to help clean up that technical debt from the last 7, 8 years. What we need to try to do is avoid that with AI. We have a unique opportunity with the maturity of the FinOps practice. And as practitioners, we need to inject our conversation into those people who are driving the AI innovation. And so when we talk to customers, they really ask us how to take this thing to market, how to help them go to market, and sort of breaks out into these 3 phases. I won't belabor the phase, it's relatively straightforward. From getting ready with building your foundation, implementing, design, and governing, and then on ongoing, manage and optimize. I think everybody in this room, if you should raise your hand if you want to start implementing FinOps practice at the readiness phase. What we're doing right now is we're arm wrestling with the business and with the financial team to implement FinOps practices after the fact. Now, some of you who are more mature are actually doing a great job in general to embed it in every business initiative. But really what we want to try to do, if we can get it right with AI, we'll embed ourselves in the new wave and the new platform that's being implemented in organizations. And so this is sort of our take on it. And there are probably many takes on it that are out there. This is our take. This is where we spend a lot of time with customers on AI. And what you will see here is instead of coming and sitting them down and say, hey, before you breathe, I need to hit you over the head with FinOps. That doesn't help anybody because the chief sales officer, the chief revenue officer, the chief HR officer, they want to move. They want to innovate. They have to differentiate. They want to make money, and they want to use it with AI. So we need to embed the principles of FinOps inside the life cycle of how we help them go to market. And you'll see all of them here. We just haven't led with, hey, everything should be FinOps. Of course, you can see in the readiness and foundation phase, we call out, hey, you should adopt FinOps, and you should engage your FinOps team if you have one, and implement your business practices. Thinks about platform landing zones. Thinks about your pricing. What types of pricing? Do you want pay-as-you-go? Do you want pre-commitment, reserve instance, savings plans? All the sort of things we know about. Have the conversation with your AI team straight away. Then moving into design and govern. Sorry, I almost tripped on a mic here. Moving into design and govern, you can see things like unique to AI, like responsible AI. This is not just about implementing, but we want to have responsible AI principles. So the AI models are effectively executing what we want and what we want to represent either internally or to the market. Governance, security, compliance, reference architectures, how to architect a well-architected solution so that it's optimized out of the gate. And then finally, the new angle of FinOps for AI, LLMOps. And if you haven't heard of it, it's large language model operations. There are many large language models out there. And within our Azure AI Studio, we provide customers with a choice, whether it's Azure OpenAI, probably the best foundational model available, but also other large language models and small language models, whether it's Cohere or Mistral or Phi or Databricks or NVIDIA. Customers have a choice. However, as a FinOps practitioner, I challenge you to have a conversation with them about which is the right large language model to use, how to understand value-cost conversation with them based on that large language model, and picking the right one. If they pick the wrong one, of course they can course correct down the line, but there is a cost difference to picking a large language model versus a small language model and understanding what they can do. Now, importantly, on large language models, I want to just cover a misconception. A lot of our business customers believe that they need to have their own large language model to have their data private. Our business stakeholders believe that. It's actually not true. There are many, many ways that you can leverage existing large language model and have the right architecture where that large language model never has access to your private data. And so both either internally or the data that you provide to their customers, either through a web experience or on an app, can be kept separate from a large language model, and so they don't have to build their own large language model. They can use OpenAI or Mistral or Phi or any of the others out there, Llama, and not feel like they have to spend lots of money, FinOps, to go build their own large language model. And so there are ingredients in here that are important for financial management that I don't think classically we've thought as the role of FinOps practitioners. And so it's important, and I use that as an example, for us to actually get a little deeper on AI so that we can represent that to the business and help them out of the gate optimize their cost management. And then, of course, manage and optimize on an ongoing basis. How do you work through what you're running, how to manage it? I'll show some actual products in parentheses, products that Jimin showed a little earlier today. So what does that mean? I picked each of these, and I'm giving you a sort of cheat sheet. Each of these stages, something that you can start with their language. Their language is the primary goal. That's what the business person wants to do, or the IT implementer for AI is trying to do in this readiness and foundation stage. And you can go to them and say, boy, do I have some great foundational guidance, policies, approaches, and FinOps best practices for you to help you make your AI project successful. And so here, the intersection with FinOps, you can see how to think about optimizing costs, planning, forecasting, budgeting. That's something that this audience knows really well. The AI people want to implement AI as fast as possible. Here, we want to bring a little bit of clarity on, hey, have you thought about forecasting, budgeting, and planning? The next piece is around design and govern. What their primary goal here is to build, design, and implement, or design, build, implement these solutions. So how can you help them? Establishing AI policies and governance. Establishing the process for approval of those things. Intersection with large language model operations, like I mentioned earlier. How can you help them think through large language model operations? And it's not only at the business level, but it's also even at the developer level. There will likely be many, many applications in the organization that will use large language models. And so when do you use which one? And for developers, how are you giving them that information? And in the last phase is really about manage and optimize. And here, the intersection is around leveraging the existing reporting. Jimin showed earlier how to use cost management reporting, and how to bring in things like Fabric to and the new focus standards to really show them the value of what's happening, how they can manage their costs, and how they can track their return on investment. So hopefully those 3 slides help you. They're relatively simple, and I don't think anything sort of in the bottom half of the slide should be a surprise for all of you, but wanted to share with you the mindset for what's going on with your peers that are either implementing or your business peers that are driving the need for artificial intelligence. And I would encourage us to think about the pivot here. The pivot is really necessary for us to embed FinOps into the business needs of the organization. And so I've picked AI here because it's, one of our 3 legs in the approach for FinOps, but there could be any business need out there. There are other business needs like reliability and security. How are you taking your FinOps practices to implement as part of the reliability and security needs of the organization? Typically, someone in the organization is reporting to the board about your security posture. How are you helping them implement FinOps practices as part of that? So next up, we want to cover Copilot for FinOps. And to do that, I thought we'd bring up the deep expert on that. And so join me in welcoming Vikram to stage, and I'll give you an overview of the product.
Okay, so we'll be talking about Copilot for cost management. Let me start off with a very high level. Copilot already increasing the efficiencies that people are seeing today. The Copilot in cost management is built on 4 primary foundational pillars: analytics, insights, optimization, and simulation. With analytics and insights, you can get understanding of your costs, understand your spending patterns, ask questions relating to your spending patterns, and as you're going and visualizing through the costs, get aspects related to things like anomalies. In the journey of FinOps, you might want to get cost savings through optimization. And with the optimization pillar, you can basically get understandings of what savings opportunities are available for you through recommendations for vehicles like reservations, savings plan. These are optimization vehicles available to you. And finally, simulation allows you to explore cost impacts based on your change in workloads. So before you make a change in your workload, you can actually simulate it and then make an informed decision. With these 4 pillars, will make your FinOps journey easier and also accelerate adopting some of these capabilities. So let me go in more details and actually show you how it is in the Azure portal itself. So to start with, the Copilot for cost management is part of the Azure portal Copilot. And when I say Azure portal Copilot, the capabilities in the Copilot for Azure has much more than cost management itself. The Copilot in Azure portal will help you do your management tasks much easier, including cost management. If the Copilot has been enabled for your tenant, the capabilities are available for all users in the tenant. And one thing to note about it is that even though it is enabled by default, you do have governance capabilities. The global administrator of the tenant can enable or disable Copilot or give access to Copilot to certain users or groups. So there is the flexibility in that from a manageability perspective too. In addition, the responses that Copilot gives is based on your access, meaning the person who is logged in, based on that user's access, policies and access controls are honored, and the responses are returned based on that. So think about this as more like the user who's logged in is running a query based on their access. But Copilot is just making it simpler for you to ask the same questions or get the same results in a natural language prompt. So let me go through a particular scenario for cost management. Let's say you have a cost overrun, and you want to understand what the cost overrun was. You can, of course, go and understand the cost overrun by going into cost management, opening cost analysis, and filtering there. But before even going there, the easy thing to do is you could ask a question in using a natural language prompt to find, let's say, start with summary of your cost. And once you ask for the summary of the cost, this prompt is under the covers converted into a query, and the response is returned by the Copilot. In this case, it is just giving a table of the daily cost. And with this table, you can visualize that there was a cost increase on a particular day. Now, at this point, you can go do further analysis by going into either more details related to that cost increase, by using some of the prompts that we have suggested, or you could even go in and try to understand the cost details based on how you have allocated your cost. Organizations may allocate the cost by subscriptions, resource groups, tags. In this example, let's try to, like the organization has allocated their cost based on subscriptions. So understanding the cost overruns for a particular subscription would help drive the accountability to that particular subscription owner. So based on that, getting the cost by subscription, the organization or the environment where there was a cost overrun can be easily found out. Now let's say further in your journey, the business is growing, business needs to change the workloads, either scale up or change the skew of the workload. Before you do the change, it is like estimating where you need to understand what would be the cost impact. And to understand the cost impact, you can simulate using what-if queries. And the what-if queries will return back the cost impact that will effectively help you make informed decisions of whether you should accept the change related to the skew change itself. Of course, let's assume that now that you've accepted this change and you're in steady state with the increased cost. And you may want to reduce the spending with the savings opportunities that you have. The savings opportunities that are available range from the various vehicles that you have with commitment-based savings, things like reserved instances, hybrid benefits, savings plan. These are vehicles that once you ask a question related to how you can optimize your cost, the Copilot looks at your data, historical data, and based on the historical data, comes up with the recommendations on purchasing reservations or savings plans. These commitment-based savings will further enhance your basic cost savings, as well as give you other vehicles like things like hybrid benefits are examples of those where you can actually get licensing costs reduced too. All of this, again, as I mentioned, are available through Azure Advisor recommendations. At the same time, the Copilot is giving you an easy way to access them in the context that you're in. Now that we've looked at the 4 pillars, how they accelerate your FinOps journey, you may also want to get business context in and join that with your cost data. This may be to get things like unit cost economics. For that, we have capabilities where you can export the data to Microsoft Fabric and join it with your business data and use the Copilot capabilities within Microsoft Fabric to further enhance your FinOps practices. We have a session coming up today at 1, which tells you how to integrate the cost data with Microsoft Fabric. Please, if you get an opportunity, attend that session. So just to summarize, the capabilities of cost management in Azure Portal with the Copilot capabilities will accelerate your FinOps journey, and further extensibilities through Microsoft Fabric will even more give you capabilities, things like unit economics related to business data that you have. Thank you. I hand it back to Cyril. Thanks, Cyril.
Thank you, Mr. V. That's great. Okay, back to our three-legged stool. So we've covered FinOps on AI, Copilot on FinOps, and so now the intersection of FinOps and sustainability. So here, just a quick overview from a Microsoft perspective. We've made some announcements quite some time ago in our commitment to sustainability. We've committed to be 100% renewable by 2025. We also will be carbon negative by 2030. And by 2050, we will have removed all carbon trace from the history of Microsoft and what we've applied to the environment. So we're on track for that. And we're investing, as you can see, in lots of land to help support that. But it's not only about what we do, it's about what all of us do together. And as you can see, there's a new landscape of reporting. 1,200 different types of regulations globally. So if you're in 2 markets, you are thinking about 2 different regulations. If you're a global company, you pretty much have a sustainability officer if you're serious about it, because this is the market that you're dealing with. And so what we've seen is that, this is research actually done by the FinOps Foundation, that in the future, in the not too distant future, there'll definitely be expectation of sustainability and FinOps intersecting. And so it's definitely a topic we need to get our head around and have this FinOps community combined with the sustainability community and be one force of good within the organization. This is the framework from the FinOps Foundation. I encourage you to have a look at it, from its output and what it sets up. It's not a complicated framework, but it's an important one to sort of standardize how we think about sustainability and relationship with FinOps. We've also gone ahead and published an ebook related to environmental, social, and governance related to FinOps. So go ahead and take a screenshot of this picture or download the ebook right now. You'll get access to it after the fact too. But instead of talking about stuff, rather show you the details of the Azure Carbon Optimizer. So let's welcome Ritesh on stage to give you a little bit more details.
Thanks, Cyril. So as Cyril mentioned, ESG regulations like CSRD are fast becoming the norm across the world. Microsoft has a number of solutions to help empower you on your journey through these reporting regulations. One such solution is Azure Carbon Optimization, which can help support your journey through these ESG regulations by providing you with means to understand, manage, and reduce the emissions that are stemming from your use of Azure. With Azure Carbon Optimization, IT teams can get insights into their main drivers of emission reductions and create strategies around how to build that, create strategies into their cloud sustainability practices. In addition, developers get access to immediate and direct emissions data and reduction recommendations, resulting in faster action. With Azure Carbon Optimization, emissions data is democratized by providing it directly within the Azure portal, which is the main admin console used by developers and IT teams while working with Azure. We piggyback on existing authorization rules that ensures that we have the right people getting access to the right emissions data. Emissions data is also available at a resource level granularity, which developers can use to combine it with their own knowledge of the system to identify areas to focus their optimization efforts on. In addition to empowering developers, IT teams, and IT ops on how to create their own effective carbon reduction strategies, Azure Carbon Optimization also provides emission reduction recommendations which are based on inefficiencies found at the resource level. Azure Carbon Optimization, or ACO for short, is available in public preview today for all Azure users. If you have resources that have been running for at least a month, you should be able to use ACO to find out your emissions. Now, time for a quick walkthrough of ACO. Now, while my walkthrough is going to be mainly focused on sustainability, while I go through the screens, you should be able to see how you can use your existing knowledge of FinOps concepts and FinOps best practices in the sustainability space. This is a page you land on when you access ACO. As mentioned before, we piggyback on existing authorization rules so that you get access to the emissions data for the subscriptions that you have access to and not for the subscriptions that aren't relevant to you. This page shows me that for the 3 subscriptions that I've filtered my subscription list to, my emissions over the last 12 months are roughly 58,000 kilograms of carbon dioxide. And over the last month, it's roughly around 4,800 kilograms. Now, these emissions are based on the resources that I've spun up in these subscriptions, including past resources like Azure SQL resources, Azure Cosmos DB resources, including Azure OpenAI resources. Luckily, my team has done a great job in reducing our emissions over the last 12 months, which is indicated by this chart over here, which shows the monthly emissions over the last year. We also provide a breakdown of our emissions by resource types as well as by locations to help our customers understand where they can focus their optimization efforts. Speaking of optimization efforts, as mentioned earlier, we provide reduction recommendations, which are based on FinOps framework's workload utilization capability. And so here, what this is telling me is that out of the 4,800 kilograms of carbon dioxide that I'm emitting, I can adopt the recommendations and cut down my emissions by 380 kilograms by being more efficient. One thing I forgot to mention is that while all cloud emissions are Scope 3 emissions for you guys, we still go ahead and provide a breakdown of our emissions by its scopes as it applies to us. So in this case, you can see that our Scope 3 emissions account for 90% or 98% of the overall emissions. Now, these sustainability terms like emission scopes and scopes 1, 2, 3 might be new to you. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time to kind of get into it right now on what they are. But fortunately, you can use Azure Copilot to query it and understand these sustainability terms. In this example, I've done exactly that. I've asked Copilot, what do the different emission scopes mean? And that's what it's provided me. So that's what I would kind of encourage you guys to do as well. Use Copilot to understand sustainability terms as you explore ACO. Come on, it's a Microsoft presentation. I had to bring up ACO, Copilot. Now, once you get a good understanding of where you are from an overall emissions perspective, it's time to dig deeper. So the emissions detailed page provides me a breakdown of my overall emissions by each individual subscription. It also provides me with the 12-month trend for each subscription. I can dig even further down by looking at emissions by resource groups, by services, by location, including even individual resource levels. Here's a page where I've dug down to the individual resource level. This page tells me that my resource, the CloudFit ADLS dev, accounts for roughly 10% of my overall emissions, but at the same time, I am reducing my emissions on that resource. So maybe that's not an area I focus on. The other resource, the Spark Pool Small in this case, is increasing dramatically. It's increased by 774% over the last month. So this is an area where I'll probably focus my optimization efforts. Speaking of optimization, here's the emissions reduction page, which shows me a list of actionable recommendations at the individual resource level. These aren't generic best practice type recommendations, but they're actually recommendations created by AI by identifying inefficiencies detected in each of these resources. So it covers recommendations like deleting idle resources, right-sizing over-provisioned resources, and acting on these recommendations not only provides quantified emission reductions, but also cost reductions. Now, if my team acts on all of these recommendations, we're going to cut down our emissions by 374 kilograms, or the carbon reduction that is done by 6 trees over a 10-year period. Now, the 6-tree example is an attempt to make carbon emissions data more relatable. We provide a number of friendly equivalencies which are based on EPA.gov provided calculations to make it easier to comprehend the environmental impact of these carbon reduction efforts. Finally, all of the emissions data is available via ARM APIs for programmatic access. But if it's data analysis and data enrichment that you're after, especially at a organization level, then we provide another solution called the Microsoft Azure Emissions Insights, offered as part of the sustainability data services within Microsoft Fabric. By harnessing Fabric's suite of services, you can streamline analytics, collaboration, and decision-making processes and drive sustainability progress faster. And with that, I'll invite Cyril back to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you. We got the cross-handed switch right this time. Handshake, handoff. Okay, so we're at time, basically. So thanks so much for your attention. We had 2 goals before we close out. The first goal was to help you understand the 3-legged stool of FinOps on AI, Copilot in FinOps, and FinOps for sustainability. And hopefully this gave you a sense of how we're thinking about and how we're trying to help customers and find the elements of FinOps and embed it into the AI projects, how we're embedding Copilot into FinOps and the intersection with sustainability. Our second goal was tactical, but just as important, and that was to end early and get you to lunch first. So enjoy that. Thanks so much, and have a good rest of the summit. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Check out more FinOps X 2024 content on our YouTube channel on the 2024 playlist. Support our channel by liking, subscribing, clicking the notification bell, and by leaving comments and questions for our speakers. We appreciate your support.